Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I have a few amendments. I've been working really, really hard on this once it came out of committee a little bit in talking to higher ed and just getting a few things just kind of tightened up a little bit to be clear. Some of the amendments are just technical. I have a couple things on Amendment 2 and removing a word, a phrase, moving a couple things on Amendment 2, 3, and 4, and working with Board of Regents, adding in some phrases on allied health, mental health on Amendment 4. Also have a couple things to make sure that we are in line on this legislation, and there was a bit of a conflict between definition of DEI-related instructional content and the academic freedom protection that is in revised statute 173399.51, and so we made that amendment in this change as well that clarifies that it is more of a clarification. It distinguishes the required program content which the bill seeks to regulate, and the faculty discretion in classroom teaching with this piece on this language, and also just clears up the bill's intent on that, and so I want to offer those amendments up.
Any objections to the adoption of the amendment? Hearing no objection, it was adopted. Back on the bill, Rep. Newell for a question on the bill. Rep. Newell, 1 second. Rep. Chenevert, I'm not sure if I gave you the opportunity to actually open on your bill.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, if I could do that, please. Members, I bring to you HB685. This bill is part of the governor's package of bills this session. This bill is to prohibit the use and promotion of DEI initiatives within Louisiana state agencies and mandated course in the public post-secondary institution. The component of this bill, it prohibits establishment of DEI offices, training, and roles in state agencies and universities, clarifies exceptions for academic freedom, federal legal compliance, and non-instructional DEI activities. This bill makes sure that we are in line with just the First Amendment rights and academic freedom of speech according to federal law. This bill is in line with the Supreme Court decision in Students for Fair Admissions versus Harvard. Many universities around the country are now under investigation because that is showing that Supreme Court decision is an important decision, and so this is some similar legislation in other states. This bill is mentioned in the bill, just creates and preserves the free speech, like I said, and academic freedom, explicitly protects classroom instruction, scholarly research, student organizations from interference, and continues to affirm First Amendment protections. There are multiple laws mentioned in this bill where nothing in this bill will infringe on what has been passed and what is currently in law at the federal level. That is one thing about this bill, is making sure that in Louisiana we are following federal law and we do not have any issues as it pertains to that with the federal government. And again, this is part of the governor's package on bills, and we just have to make sure that we are following federal law because we know that federal dollars are attached to that, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Rep. Newell for the question on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Chenevert, we had a decent discussion about this in committee. But I want to ask, with your amendment, and you said talking to the people with the higher education, do you see as your legislation passing any constitutional hurdles, mainly anything that would impact the First Amendment that's so needed in our classrooms?
Correct, and I would agree with you, Rep. Noel, but this bill does not infringe on any of that at all. Again, this bill is following those specific laws as they're mentioned in the bill. And so what we're also doing is we are actually not prohibiting some of these courses. This bill is focusing on a mandated course to graduate. So again, these courses can still be offered. That is not being prohibited in the bill. It's just they cannot have a mandated course to graduate. However, there is an exception in the bill that talks about if the board in a certain curriculum requires a certain course, that they can make that decision. So again, it's not prohibiting that. This is continuing the opportunity of free speech, and continue the discussions around a lot of things across the world, the globe. We are not prohibiting that in any manner in this bill.
Okay, so do you also understand that when something is so vague and broad, it can also have a chilling effect on our First Amendment? Meaning that, as you just said, our commitment, our state's commitment, is to safeguard academic freedoms, and that freedom is of special concern to the First Amendment, which we both mentioned. So constitutionally permissible activity and speech cannot be chilled when a statute is so vague that the average citizen can't determine what actually is regulated. You said about mandated courses. However, what about just classroom conversations that could possibly be prohibited, and what punishments are proposed for that? What guidelines will instructors of classes that aren't mandated, what are they going to be using to determine whether or not their actions are prohibited or not in the classrooms?
Rep. Chenevert, 1 minute. Members, I'm going to ask that you please hold your conversations down. Members, thank you. Rep. Chenevert.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Rep. Newell, this bill does not prohibit the discussions like you're talking about. This is about in higher ed. It's just requiring students, it's making sure that they are not required to have a mandated course on very specific topics as mentioned in here as far as DEI-related instructional content. So
okay.
These courses, again, these courses can be, people can take these courses. I had spoke with some universities that they had maybe some courses of concern, and so I looked at all those courses, and those had nothing to do with DEI and those specific in higher ed in university. So again, it's the DEI instructional content on that, and again, it's specifically on a required class for graduation. So
okay, thank you. So what are the implications? Okay, I need y'all to stop walking in front of me while I'm on this microphone. What are the implications of non-compliance from a teacher? What happens?
Well, this is requiring for agencies that they have to basically get a plan and then submit that plan to the legislature.
So what happens to the instructor?
There's nothing that happens to the instructor. But what we're doing is we're saying that within the state law, because we have to follow the federal law, we have to make sure that we are not going against any federal laws of discrimination. So this is just saying,
so the only thing we're doing is you're just taking money from, that's essentially what we're doing. So there's no implications on the instructor that teaches this. We're just trying to see if you're teaching it. Okay, I'm tired of this. I'm just asking because why are we putting this in law if we're just taking the money? Why are we even restricting what the teachers can teach? How they're hiring, if there's going to be no backlash?
Well, what we're doing is making sure that we in Louisiana are not in violation of current federal law when it comes to civil rights. We're making sure that Louisiana is not, when it comes to hiring, admissions, that we're following the law.
I'm glad
this is
so
again came from the governor. He did have an executive order last summer, and I would say that this is following in line with also his executive order. And so we're just saying within DEI initiatives, because currently I will say this is a bill that protects Louisiana in federal dollars. The federal government is right now investigating a very long list of universities that are continuing utilizing these practices because it is in violation of federal law. And we want to make sure in Louisiana that we are following the law, and that that we are not going to have a problem with the federal government as well. So
yes, and I do like to follow federal law, and I also like to keep our civil rights intact, particularly for me.
I agree.
I don't think you agree, because we wouldn't be discussing this bill if you agreed in protecting my civil rights, but that's not a question. If something is so standard list that it encourages discriminatory enforcement. What is the, you're saying that the teachers, there won't be any backlash on the teachers, but for the universities, if they're not following through, what is the appeals process for these universities? Or if it is an instructor, if they find themselves where someone says that they've taught content that goes against what we're doing, or what you're doing, because I'm not participating in this.
Nothing new necessarily in my bill.
New
It's
well,
just saying that the agencies are supposed to let basically the legislature know of like the actions they're taking once this bill were to pass. So we're not doing anything to a professor. There's nothing in my bill. My bill is focusing on,
I also
again,
said the schools, so what is the appeals process for the schools? And what is the purpose of these reports coming to us if nothing is going to happen to the schools?
well, Rep. Newell, what I'm saying is something could
Newell.
happen if Louisiana as a state, we could get investigated. We could have federal dollars taken if we do not follow the law. And so no matter how we look at this, we have to follow the 1964 Civil Rights Act. We have to follow the First Amendment. This piece of legislation makes sure that we are following those things, that we are in line with that, and that there's no initiative, that there's no program that works around that. So this is actually a piece of legislation from the governor's office and working with the policy team that this puts us in line and keeps us in line with the federal law.
Okay, so we're going with the federal law, but we're trying to get away with the policies that were created in following that federal law, like diversity, equity, inclusion, and affirmative action. That's what we're doing. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Marcel for a question on the bill. Rep. Marcel for a question. Members, please keep your conversations down. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Chenevert, when we were in committee, I asked you some questions regarding like the Louisiana State Police. There were some initiatives that we took as a body, and the state police adopted those policies. There were a lot of committees, a lot of thought process. And so what will happen to those programs that the state police has put in place as it relates to race, because some of it is directly related to race, gender, and hiring and recruiting? Help me to, because you didn't have an answer for me then, maybe perhaps you have one today.
Well, Rep. Marcel, that question is all of the departments would have to.
I can't hear you.
All of those departments would have to basically come into law underneath this bill. And if there's anything, I am not infringing on any types of trainings for the police department in any way. And so there's nothing in there that would do that. And so that's something that in working with this piece of legislation and looking at if they'd have to go through like every agency and see if there's anything that is specifically focused on this, and then they would have to report a plan if there's anything. There's some agencies and departments that may not have any type of reporting mechanism in any way because nothing may be involved in DEI. So that would be something they would have to report.
Okay, let me explain it to you. So my concern and question is, if there are any policies that are currently in place with the Louisiana State Police, I'm gonna use them for example, that would include, because your bill is very specific when it starts to talk about hiring practice as it relates to race, training as it relates to race, sexual orientation, and all of those things are in your bill. Are you saying that the state police are exempt from your bill because there are policies? Or are you saying that those policies would have to cease and desist?
Rep. Marcel, I'm saying that that is a discussion with state police, and I have not talked to state police, but I believe that state police is working hard and they hire people all walks of life that have all different looks, and it's exactly what we would want, no matter what someone's race is, no matter where they come from. And so that would be what I would assume, that's exactly what this would put in place, that everybody would have that opportunity, and that would be left up to them to look into their initiatives and their trainings, and then they could adapt or not adapt. That's something that we would look at that specific agency.
But I guess, I don't know if you don't want to answer it, but what I'm specifically asking you is, there is a policy in place by the state police that requires the officers to go through certain training regarding race, race relations, and the list goes on. If your bill passes, help me to understand, with the state police, of Louisiana State Police, that a lot of people had a lot of issues with when some things came out with the body cameras, and that's the way they addressed it, with this bill, would they have to cease and desist from their policies and practices to train their officers about race relations? That is a policy in the state police.
Right, Marcel, I cannot see, I don't know their exact trainings, their exact policies.
I'm telling you what they are, Representative Shinneberg.
I finished answering.
Representative, 1 minute. Members, there's 4 people in the queue right now. The member's out of time. I'm going to ask for an additional 15 minutes. Hearing no objections, the member has an additional 15 minutes. Representative Marcel, please ask a question and allow...
I did.
And allow the author to answer the question.
I'm waiting on the author to answer the question. I asked it in committee.
Rep Marcel, don't interrupt. Representative Chenevert, please answer the question.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In answer to your question, every different agency would look, if this passes, to see if there's anything. I do not know the specifics of their trainings. I cannot see that on paper. They would look at their departments and say, are we doing things simply based on race, simply based on this, simply based on gender? Are we only hiring on certain genders? Are we only doing this? That would be something departments would look at. Now, and I will also point to the bill that we are opening in discussions. There is nothing that hinders discussions on race relations. We covered that. We want that to be discussed within higher ed. That's in the bill. These conversations, we are not saying you cannot discuss this. This is simply about trainings based on race, hiring based on race or gender and nationality. Everyone should have the opportunity, no matter if black, white, yellow, brown. This is about equality for all, and that's what we're doing. Again, it's following federal law.
Okay, let me ask you another question.
I would assume that state police cannot follow and go against any federal laws as well. So that's just what that would be. Thank you.
Okay, Representative Shinneberg, are you aware how the DEI program came about? Are you aware what it was meant to do? What's your understanding of why the program was ever developed?
Rep. Marcel, this bill, it is irrelevant about what I think or what it has accomplished.
It's your bill.
But I'm focused on the bill.
And I'm asking you a question.
I understand that, but you're not asking directly about the bill. I'm telling you what the bill does. It's not about how DEI started in the nation. This bill is basically stating what this is about, where we would have what we are doing within state agencies and a mandatory course. We are not prohibiting the discussion of these things within higher ed. We are not prohibiting the discussion of anything with race relations or any type of situation in the state of Louisiana or country with race relations. We are we want the First Amendment is protected. That is in the bill as it should be, because I believe in protecting free speech, even speech that I disagree with. This is about forcing someone to take a course as it pertains to DEI-related instructional content.
But would you agree that your bill does more than the instructional piece that you just talked about? It talks about every department in the state. Am I accurate, or did I read something wrong?
No,
every department has to look and see if they have any policies or procedures that assist people in being hired, or promoted, or trained, that is around race, gender.
This is falling in line with federal law that we cannot discriminate against anyone that falls around any effort to influence hiring or employment.
Let me ask
statements. I'm answering your question in a sense. That's what the bill's doing.
Okay. Let me ask you another question. Are you aware that there's a lawsuit filed on the executive order of DEI? Are you aware of that?
I am not aware of that.
You're not? Well, there is.
Well, Rep. Marcel, we have to follow the federal law.
And so...
And this bill, I don't know about, I'm focused on the bill, and this bill, as it pertains, nothing in this section shall be construed to limit or to anything, obligations to comply with any education amendments in 1972, Age Discrimination Employment Act, all this is protected. The Title VI of Civil Rights Act in 1964, Title III of the Higher Ed Education Act, and the ADA. We are protecting people's rights in this bill across the board.
Representative Shinneberg, I know you're reading your notes, but I'm
Actually
specifically
reading the bill.
right, that too. So I'm just asking you, one, you keep referring to it as federal law. Are you aware that when it's a federal law that's Congress have passed that law? Are you aware of that?
I am aware, but what I'm referring to heavily right now is making sure that we in Louisiana.
No, excuse, I want you to answer my question. Are you aware, you keep saying a federal law, the laws that like what we pass in here, state laws, and the laws in federal are federal, right? It's an executive order by the president.
No, what I'm reading to you are actual, actual amendments, actual laws. I'm not just talking about the president's executive order on January 20th of this year. I'm not talking just about that. I'm talking about how we are looking at these rulings of the Supreme Court in 2023, that they are saying that basically that no person in the United States shall on the ground of race, color, or national origin be excluded from participation in, be denied any benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination.
I'm gonna let some other people talk. Let me just wrap up. Would you agree that DEI stands for what for you? What does it stand for? Diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? And I asked you at the table, do you believe in diversity, equity, and inclusion?
But Marcel, I believe in diversity. I believe
But
in
this
these
is the
things.
program, wait.
I would like to answer, because here's the thing with this. Everyone's going to have a definition of their own. As it pertains to the bill, we're talking about DEI, very specific in this bill. It is irrelevant what I feel about this. In this bill, DEI-related instructional content, we discuss it here. If you're asking me about diversity, equity, inclusion, yeah, there's a lot of things. I believe in diversity of thought, look, where people come from. I believe in all walks of life. But people want to put you into a corner and tell you exactly how to think about these things. This is the concern with DEI-related content in forced trainings. And so all this is saying you should not be forced to sit through a training. And you can discuss it, you can take a course in it, you are not forced to go through a training as it pertains to state agencies and be forced, that's what this is.
Representative Shinneberg, you are entitled to your own opinion, but not your own facts. If you look up diversity, equity, and inclusion, there's specific definition for what it is. Not what you think about it, it's what it is. I can't change it. If you Google it, it's not going to change in your phone like it didn't change in mine. But in my final statement or my final question would be, are you aware that under the DEI program, more white women have benefited than anyone else? Are you aware of that?
Marcel, I will tell you this. My big concern with DEI, that it has hurt more female athletes across this country than it has helped. And that is a very strong, as an athlete who was in high school. So I hear what you're saying. But my biggest concern in DEI, that there are female athletes that have lost medals. They have been working extremely hard since they were young. And because of the word inclusion, and I believe in that, but because of some others' definition of it, we have biological men that have taken the positions of biological women. And so my pushback to that would be, I don't think it's helped us as much as what maybe you're referring to, especially in modern times.
Okay, so what you're referring to is the LGBT community, that you believe that transgender people are now women and running for these races? Because I don't know what you're talking about. That's not in your bill, so I'm trying to figure out where that's coming from.
DEI initiatives that is a part that can be included in that when it comes to trainings and when it comes to how it is actually applied.
Okay.
What I'm saying is, you asked me a question about females, and my response is, I think it is hurting female athletes more than it's helped.
And I'm gonna ask you the question the final time, and I'm gonna sit down. Are you aware that more white women like yourself have benefited from DEI? Not the people who you're talking about that we don't know who that is, the athletes. Are you aware? Because this is information that you can obtain.
Well, I appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
Marcel.
Members, please hold your conversations down to a minimum, please. Thank you. Rep. Lyons for a question on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Vera, I want to start with, I know we were in committee, and I forgot the gentleman you had at the table with you. Do you recall the question asked to him about why we did this, and his answer was regarding failed programs? You remember that?
Vaguely, but that's his response, Rep. Lyons. It doesn't really refer to.
I understand. Well, it is today because it's the same bill. But my question to you is, what programs have failed under diversity, equity, and inclusion that may have been referred to?
Rep. Lyons, again, I'm not here to talk about which programs have failed and what hasn't. We're just talking about coming under federal law and making sure that everything that we're doing in our state as it pertains to hiring, admissions, and all of those things that is following the law. Equal opportunity for all. That's what this is about. So I can't pick and choose and tell you that which was working, what's not working. And that's my answer to that.
Okay, so the next question is, last year you did House Bill 904, which was Act 641. And in that bill, you asked for reporting for universities, post-secondary education, to supply reports of DEI in their organizations or in schools, and it also called for information on stipends, monies, and so forth, and what have you. Do you recall that?
I do recall. I don't have the report with me up here to go through it today.
So what did the report focus on?
There were some things in that report that dealt with some things with DEI. There were some things on that list that I think maybe some people thought was a part of DEI and it was not. But there was just showed that the dollars spent within that. A lot of this within across the country in universities, a lot of it is federal dollars as well, which that was only a state dollar report.
So where is that report now, actually?
It's live, I feel like, somewhere online for all public to see. I don't have it with me down here today.
So it didn't outline any specifics, because you just said a lot of, but you had no specifics.
There are specifics.
Give me
again,
some specificity as to what.
Right, but I'm here to talk about this bill today.
Well,
I don't have that report in front of me.
Okay, well, I'm asking that question because some of the same items in that bill are some of the same items in this bill here now. So if we had a report that outlined those issues that were there, why are we asking for the same things again in another bill?
Well, this is a different bill, and so like I said, this bill is talking about the state agencies and just a mandatory course. And so that's what this bill is doing. Again, we're not prohibiting anything. Those are two different pieces. Again, this is governor's bill, working with the policy team on this, and just making sure, again, as we're looking at this year and what's taking place, that we're following federal law, that we're looking at everything, we're protecting free speech, that we're doing everything that we can in Louisiana because we have a lot of federal dollars in our budget. And there are states right now that are being investigated and looked at, and their federal dollars could be at stake with some of these DEI-related content. And we have, $22.46 billion of our budget comes from the federal government. And so again,
Is Louisiana being investigated currently right now?
no, not that I'm aware of.
Because you talked about the other states. So I wanted to ask you specifically with this bill in Louisiana, is Louisiana being investigated?
No, Rep. Lyons, but I have a list of probably, I can't even count how many universities across the country are being investigated.
But we're not putting together legislation for other universities.
Right.
We're doing it for Louisiana. The
Correct.
next part of that question is, you included state agencies in this particular bill. And along with the fiscal note, have you spoken with anybody in the Department of Agriculture about how it will affect them?
No, I have not. And I don't know if any of them have talked to the governor's team at all, but I can't answer that. I don't know that.
So what do you know about the Minority Affairs Program?
I don't have any information, Rep. Lyons, on that.
But in your bill, you want to remove that program for it. It was actually reported that's the only program in state government that actually references diversity, equity, inclusion. But yet you're going to remove that program under the bill that you have here. Do you have any idea how much economic impact that program has on the state of Louisiana and its farmers?
Rep. Lyons, every agency serves every person and serves every look and every race in Louisiana. That's not stopping. Our agencies are called to serve every person in Louisiana, no matter what gender, no matter what color, no matter how old, if they have a disability or not. This bill does not prohibit anyone being served in the state of Louisiana in any form.
Back to my question. Do you have any idea, or can you tell me the economic impact that removal of that program would have on the state of Louisiana and its farmers and veterans?
Well, Rep. Lyons, I believe that whoever you're referring to those farmers, that they will continue to be served. Could this reduce government? It could reduce government spending if there are departments or initiatives across the state. I do not have those numbers, but could it potentially reduce government? It could.
Well, according to the fiscal note, it's going to save the state $174,000 for that one person who runs that department. But economically, for the thousands of farmers of the state, it could be millions of dollars of impact because that program ties the state farmers to federal program, federal resources. So removing that impacts the state economically in a way that you don't know. So my question to you is, why would you not even try to find out how much or what adverse reaction would be to this being in the bill?
Rep. Lyons, again, our agencies and departments, I believe, work very hard, no matter who is in position, to serve every farmer, to serve every look, to serve everybody. That would be, I would tell you, that would be the goal, I believe, of our agencies, to serve every single group, every gender, and every person, no matter if there's a position, no matter or not. And this bill, again, is going to protect every look, every group. This is not about discriminatory. This is what we have got to make sure that we are doing, is that we are following the law, no matter where you come from, no matter what you do, no matter what your national origin is that we are equal for all people. And that's what this bill does.
Okay, so let me finish up because I know other questions in the queue. So as of right now, and correct me if I'm wrong, you said that there are no incidents in Louisiana under investigation, no schools, right?
I am not aware of anything.
Okay,
There could be, but I am not aware. That's what I said.
So there are no other state agencies that reported any types of DEI projects in state government other than the one that I just talked about at the Department of Agriculture to date, correct?
I'm not aware of any other groups.
But you have some reports that you have from your last bill that covered the Department of Education and post-secondary education that you can't remember specifically what may have been in them, but we have similar stuff in this bill again this year to do the same type of reporting. So that's not available either, or it's online, forgot. So do you realize that we are duplicating this bill with last year, right?
That bill is a report to look at all. Again, I'm not here to talk about last year's bill. I'm here to say that we are not going to allow we are not doing DEI initiative, DEI practices within state agencies. It's not a report to find out what's happening. It's making a statement in that.
What are specifically DEI practices?
Well, they can look a lot of different ways, whether they're in a state agency, but it's really focusing on hiring, admissions, and trainings, where you're not having to sit through, as it mentions, the DEI-related instructional content, forced to sit through these trainings, no matter where you are. That it doesn't matter what your look is, doesn't matter what your gender is, that you have the same opportunity, and that you're not forced to sit through these specific trainings or be admitted or be hired based on race or any of that. Again, we have federal law. There are situations currently that we cannot violate that law.
What is that federal law? You say that 100 times today. What is that federal law?
I have everything mentioned in the bill of the protections. And so
what is it? What's the law? What's the code? Where is that? What is that federal law that you keep referencing?
We can't violate, we can't hire, we can't do admissions based on race and religion and natural origin. That is like, we have those civil rights within our country. And so we have protections of that. And so this is, again, following in line with that. And I would argue, too, within, like I read a letter that was from the Department of Education, Office of Civil Rights, that was February 14th of this year, when the acting secretary basically talked about how, because of these rulings, that no person can be discriminated on the basis of race and religion and creed. And that although that ruling was about admissions, that it actually flows into other things. It's like a test that we cannot discriminate against anybody on race or religion or national origin, no matter who we are, no matter where we come from.
But you don't have what that law is. I get it. So you said, let me say, close by saying, asking this question.
1 minute. The member's out of time. There's 5 people still in the queue for questions. I'm going to ask for an additional 15 minutes. Hearing no objections, the member has an additional 15 minutes. Rep. Lyons.
Thank you. So this is what you are referring to, because I listened to your 2 answers, and this is what you told me did not exist, but this is what it is. In the United States of America, diversity, equity, and inclusion are organizational frameworks that seek to promote the fair treatment and full participation of all people, particularly groups who have been historically underrepresented or subject to discrimination based on identity or disability. You just said a second ago that that should not happen, but that's the good thing about it. So my last question before I sit down is, being that we've covered so much, this dialogue we had, you feel like because we've done this with educational pieces and state government, that we're going to continue to affect the economic piece of the state, you would not want to remove the Department of Agriculture's piece at all from this bill?
Rep. Lyons, again, this bill, and working with the governor's office, this is every state agency. The agencies will look at their departments, they will look at their hires, as in the bill, and they will see, is it in violation of this bill? Is it in violation if this is to become law? And so then they would have to submit a plan, and that would be whether it's that department or anyone else.
Should I call the governor's office and ask them that, particularly because this has an economic effect on Louisiana with the farmers, should we remove that from this bill? Economically, it's going to affect thousands of farmers in this state and federal monies that we have to draw down. Should I get someone to tell me we should keep this or leave this in the bill? Yes or no?
Rep. Lyons, again, I'm in line with this piece of legislation, and this is about every state agency, not just one, and that they would look at their hires, they would look at what's going on, and we have to make sure that every person hired in our agencies serve every community, including community who you're talking about. We as a state cannot discriminate against anybody, and this bill is saying that we do not want to discriminate against anybody. This is for all Louisianians, no matter where you come from, no matter who you are, and that is what this is about. And so,
thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You waive all further questions? The member waives all further questions. Rep. Newell for the floor on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, this is the most racially offensive piece of legislation that I think I've had to debate since I got in office. This legislation prohibits the teaching of subjects that would trigger white fragility or white guilt. Constitutionally, this is an issue because the language is vague and it's overbroad, having a chilling effect on protected speech and causing people to self-censor and not share protective beliefs and ideologies. Logically, this is an issue because we wouldn't have to tiptoe around white fragility and white guilt if more people would not continue to create policies and environments where schools and workplaces are divided, where people do not have equitable access to opportunity, and people are hindered from having freedom of speech, religion, and assembly. In this building, we have conversations about supporting and providing quality education for our children to guarantee them success. However, academic achievement is only a small part, totally meaningless in becoming successful if a person does not have equitable access to resources and opportunity. Creating access to opportunities which support individual success for Black people and women does not take away opportunities for straight white men. When we remove actual or systemic barriers which may hinder any one person's opportunity, it can have a positive impact on the classroom, the workplace, and our communities. The fact that we are about to vote on legislation which would essentially eliminate or throw away groups of people from being included in and having access to available opportunities because they do not have the right skin color or gender that fits into the society that someone else is telling us that we should have in our state is absolutely absurd. This legislation would also eliminate mentoring programs for our first-generation college students. It would eliminate harassment prevention training, such as sexual harassment training, lactation stations, teaching on how to be supportive to marginalized groups, and protecting our students. What about my Black fragility and my Black fatigue? I just want to be Black in peace. DEI is not a handout. It is a policy created to open opportunities for those of us who are qualified, but not offered those opportunities simply because of the color of our skin. Black people have only been asking for equity, inclusion, and access to resources and opportunity. God forbid the day we start asking and seeking for revenge.
Members, we had a small technical issue up at the dais. So if you wanted to go to the floor, can you please go back to your desk and press floor on the button, Rep. Marcel, for the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. DEI. It seems like suddenly DEI is a bad word. It's diversity, equity, and inclusion. These are all words that every member in this House say that they believe in. They believe in diversity. I've heard even Representative say it time and time again. We believe in equity and inclusion. If that is so, why are we trying to eliminate a program called diversity, equity, and inclusion? Apparently, Representative does not know why it was created in the first place. If we had equal opportunity to be at the table, there would be no need to create the program. It is created with a framework to promote fair treatment. Everybody in here say they're fair. And full participation from all people, but particularly those people who have historically been either underrepresented or subjected to discrimination based on several things. She kept talking about one group of people winning a race over another group of people. This is based on your identity, whether it was being Black or LGBT or white women or some form of disability. So DEI was an attempt to right a wrong. In other words, this bill seeks to take us backwards. This bill seeks to control what's being taught at the universities. I kept hearing her say, no, they have the... Why are we auditing people to see what's going on if there's not going to be any punishment for it? It's changing programs that has been implemented to increase the marginal numbers of disenfranchised people who, because of this bill, now have a seat at the table. That's who we're going to change it for. Whether that's a disability, we all see people with disabilities, they offer them jobs, they create a space for them. This bill seeks to take those opportunities away from them. What is most offensive, though, about this bill is that it is being driven from a political climate that we find ourselves in today. We keep talking about the federal law. It is an executive order, and it is also being challenged. Apparently, no one has told the author, and I kept asking her over and over again, but she kept reading from her notes, that white women like herself have benefited more from DEI than anyone else. Because for too long, women couldn't even vote. It hadn't been that long ago when we couldn't vote. We certainly wouldn't be in here. So it's really appalling to me that a woman would bring this bill and stand up here and say that they're inclusive and they believe in diversity. This bill seeks to take us backwards. If this bill passes, what will we do with our police departments, our accident committee? What are we going to do with our police departments? Everybody knows that state police has implemented policies. What are we going to do? This bill seeks to take us backwards. What will we do with those people with the disabilities? What will we do with Title IX? Finally, this is not an educational integrity bill, nor is it about fairness. This is an attempt to reverse where we've come from as a state. In this very bill, it talks about white fragility. And what does that mean? If somebody is uncomfortable, that means that there is a problem with it. I'm uncomfortable. I've been uncomfortable. Black folks been uncomfortable. Guess what? We're uncomfortable, but we're not putting legislation forward to undo things that we're moving forward as a state. This bill seeks to take us backwards. And I stand up here and ask you to search your heart, you know, the one where we get up here and pray every day before we gavel in, that one. Check that one out, where we talk about God. What would God do? Would God say, let's reverse this, because somebody did an executive order? Would God say, let's reverse people having a seat at the table? Would God say, we tried to fix some of the racism that was caused in Louisiana, deep-seated racism, and we're trying to fix that. We can't fix it overnight. But would God say, let's reverse that? Let's take that back. Let's take that from them. The opportunity to be at the table. Not a hand out, but a hand up. And this bill seeks to undo what has been done in this state. I hope as men and women of this state, you would think twice before you push your button to support such a divisive bill.
Rep. Wilford Carter for the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It seems that we don't want to call the bill what it is. It's DEI. For some reason, most people think DEI means black. DEI does not mean black, okay? It doesn't, you're not, yes, we are speaking out as a group against it because you ought to be speaking out against it yourself. How we got here? How did we get to this point? We got here because of racism, people being denied opportunities. You know, that's how we got here. So some case came up, a Supreme Court case, that talks about segregation, talks about denying folks admission, opportunities, and what have you. And so we came up with DEI. Wasn't me. Somebody came up with DEI long before that. So DEI is intended to include everybody. It doesn't mean you got to hire a person because they're black. These airplanes flying in the sky, they listen to air traffic controllers. They don't know whether the air traffic controller is black or white or Asian or whatever. You can't be an air traffic controller just because you black, because somebody's going to hire a black person as an air traffic controller. You got to pass tests and be qualified. And one of the reasons why we have a shortage is because we're not going to different places to try to get the best and the brightest that we have. So DEI is an opportunity to go and seek out the best and the brightest we have in this country to do the things that need to be done in this country. So by doing things like this, you're really not doing what you really want to do, is get the best and the brightest. Now, they keep talking about what the court says. The federal court, Supreme Court, only said that race should not be the sole factor in selecting a student at Harvard University. So if you want to pass a bill that said LSU cannot enroll a student or get a student in the LSU based on race alone, well, that's be consistent with the law. But it didn't say anything about the stuff this bill says. This bill more should talk about what the president's executive order said, you know, that he didn't like DEI. But DEI keep in mind, is to access all areas, all groups in our country, to get the brightest minds that we can to deal with the problems that we face in this country. And we continue on this path, we're going to find ourselves falling further and further behind other nations because we're not going to have enough air traffic controllers, we're not going to have enough scientists because we're trying to get them from select source. Okay, so how are you going to decide whether or not a person is hired in a department based on race or based on qualification? I mean, what exactly? That means every black person hired in the state of Louisiana in the department, the first thing you're going to say is a DEI hire? But that's not the case. And how are you going to go back and investigate other hirings that's already been done? Every black that's hired in the state of Louisiana happen to be a DEI hire? That is not the case. You got a man working, trying to repair a road. Is he a DEI hire? So I think we're going too far with this bill. It's trying to do too much, and we taking our eyes off the ball, and we trying to divide one another. We're trying to divide ourselves. And I think we need not to divide the country. We need not divide the state. We need to be together and get the brightest, go everywhere. We got to go to Grambling, go to Southern, go to LSU, go to USL, and get the brightest to qualify for every job. And don't worry about the color of the person's skin. And this is what this bill seemed to be talking about, color. And it shouldn't be.
Rep. Lyons for the floor on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this moment. Members, I'm not going to tarry. I'm going to get down to where we need to go. I had questions about this bill because I went to the heart of the bill. And the fact of the matter is we don't have a DEI problem in Louisiana. We don't have an issue with none of that at all. But we got to get to the point where people outside or somewhere else can't dictate to us what we should be doing politically, what we should be doing economically, that divides us and divides our state. The facts remain, there's nothing going on in the reports. There was no specificity about what even happened. You heard it, it's not there. It doesn't happen. We targeted a part of state government that brings millions of dollars to the state in farming. We're going to eliminate the direction of that. So the Fed's going to say, well, you're not going to get so much money. Then we're going to come back complaining why we did that. It's shooting ourselves in the foot for political reason. Politics. We talk about this at this body every day, why people will leave and don't want to come back to the state. We talk about education. We talk about economics. We talk about taxes. But we never talk about political climate. We never talk about that. We talk about the billions and billions of dollars coming into this state, all over the country, coming here for business. But when we start to shed all the things that make us united, make us together, nobody gonna want to be here. It's gonna be a hotbed of crazy politics. And we should be better than that. Now, diversity, equity, and inclusion has a definition of actually what it is. And I'm proud to say that I'm gonna thank you, Mr. Speaker, because you practice that in this body. There's no reason why you can walk up in here and say we have a majority of Republicans and versus Democrats, and we all included. As diverse as we are, the Speaker makes sure we all included and we have equity among what we do. That's Louisiana. That's what America should be and could still be. But we can't allow the outside forces to come in and tell you what you need to do in Louisiana because they did it in Kentucky or they did it somewhere else. It just doesn't work. So we're at our Rubicon right now. We're at the point of no return for moral, Christian-hearted, self-believing people to do what's right. Yes, this bill only categorizes two things: state government, which is big, and education. But it's just a gateway to something else. Something else. That we can't leave here and come back 5, 10 years now and say, I want to change it. I made a mistake. Because politically, I had to do what I was asked to do. It's wrong. It's wrong. Now I'm going to close by saying this little piece, because a lot has been said. 99% of people in this room have ate gumbo before. Some of you know how to make a good pot, like I do. But you can't make gumbo if you keep changing the roux. You can't take a good pot of gumbo because the roux holds it together. Its texture, its flavor, all comes from the roux. This stuff here is divisive. It takes the roux out of what we are in Louisiana. So I'm asking you to do what's right. Table this, get this out of here. We don't need this. Let's continue to work hard to fix our insurance problems. Let's fix our taxes. Let's fix what the people send us here for. That stuff comes from D.C. We have no problem with that in the state. That comes from D.C. That's national stuff. We got to learn how to say no to what's right. Our people at home is counting on us to do that. That's all I ask you to do. Examine yourselves when you do that. Just remember, the gumbo is always thick. If it's thin and clear, it ain't gumbo. It's just soup. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Rep. Moore for the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am not going to stand here and ask or try to persuade you all to vote yes or no on this bill. I'm here. I came forward to do two things. First of all, I came to let you all know that I have read the bills, the substitute, the original, the engrossed, the substitute bill. I've looked at the amendments. I've even gone back and looked at the tape because I'm not on that committee. But I looked at the recordings. And I'm standing here because I just want you all to know what's on my heart and how I saw this. I am troubled by this bill and the things that are in it. I'm not going to go through all what's been said. I'm just going to let you know that I cannot vote yes on this bill. You do what you got to do, but I wanted you to know because I see what it's doing. It's removing all of the diversity, the equity, the inclusion, the plan, the programs, dismantling the support system, saying, just all of that, just a whole big, just all of it. If someone doesn't want to take, I'm okay with the mandate, don't do that, okay. But if someone doesn't want to take the class, that's okay if you don't want to know. I think if I wanted to be a better person, I want to know about this. So I'm going to say this. What am I planning to do when I go home? This is what and I'm just off the top of my head thinking right now, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back and tell my constituents and people that this bill has passed. I'm going to try to encourage those students that go to school, go to universities, to take the course, to learn all you can, get all the knowledge and understanding and the wisdoms you can. I'm going to go back and tell the people in my community that we got to do better. We got to do better. Better yourself. If you're going to lose your job, start working on your resume. Start looking for another job, because if this bill passes, some people will. And so I'm going to stop there, because it does prick my heart when I read things like this and when I see it. So all I'm saying is, and I want you to understand, I cannot vote yes on this bill. Thank you.
Rep. Phelps for the floor on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Actually, today I reflected on the governor's speech, his inauguration speech, and he talked a lot about the culture of Louisiana, how we are a melting pot of the state. He talked about his Cajun heritage. He talked about the French, Spanish communities that we all make up the state of Louisiana, Native Americans, and I'm thinking, what does that mean for French teachings or Spanish teachings and the people who made Louisiana who we are? Does that mean that the Ragin' Cajuns nickname will be removed? One thing I would like to leave with us, and this has bothered me since I entered into this space in 2019 and 2020. Back to what Representative Marcel mentioned about praying. I don't know how, but I can say this. One thing for sure, I do not play about my belief in God. And I have wondered since I've been in this building, how do we say that over and over again and be so, I'm going to say, racist to the point where we are not included? How do we get there and we don't treat everybody? Because Jesus was not a respective person. And the one thing that I've always wanted to say, when he bled on the cross for us all, that we know the story, his blood was only one color. That same color in all of our veins, everywhere, it's only one color. I don't think anybody would say, I don't want Rev Phelps' blood infusion to save my life. He is the ultimate judge, and I truly believe, he will be judging us on the intent of our actions because he knows that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Rep. Laura Bedane for the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let's get something quick. Let's get something done real quick. This is about race. That's all. We're not on a track meet. This is about race. That's what we're dealing with. We had a contentious meeting in H&G a few days ago, and on page 1 of an 8-page bill, it's more than about taking a class. It's 8 pages. It's more about taking a class, mandatory or optional. Let me tell you what it says on page 19 on the first page. It deals with critical race theory, white fragility, white guilt, systematic racism, institutional racism, anti-racism, systematic bias, implicit bias, the next page, unconscious bias, gender identity, allyship, race-based reparations, race-based privilege, and use of pronouns. Understand, if we're going to move our state forward, we have to be on the same page. This bill is too divisive. Young people are not going to stay in Louisiana if we're fighting amongst each other. We've got more important things to be dealing with. We're losing teachers to Texas because of pay. We're not moving our state forward. I'm in Alexandria. Most of the young, I attended Peabody graduation in Tioga. Most of the young folks are leaving. They see no opportunity, they see no future. We have to put this foolishness down and work together. I'm disappointed in the governor because this is his hallmark. Bring people together, create jobs, work together. You've got 4.6 million people in our state, and we're losing them, but 1.6 African Americans. You can't attack this group and think it's going to be okay. That's not going to happen. We want to be a part of this state, and we want to be involved, but this divisive legislation doesn't help us. We want good schools. We want healthy neighborhoods. We want growth. But when you start attacking people, you're hurting African Americans, you're hurting your veterans, you're hurting women, you're hurting the disabled. We can't grow like that. When you let me look at some of these definitions, because I didn't know what white fragility was. Feelings of discomfort a white person may experience when they are confronted with discussions around racial inequality and injustice. I got that from Cambridge Dictionary. White guilt. White guilt's not in Webster because I had to find it somewhere else. Remorse felt by a white person with respect to racial inequality and injustice. Systematic racism, I found that in Webster. The oppression of a racial group to the advantage of another as perpetrated by inequality within interconnected systems, political, economic, and social systems. We're better than that. We can't fight amongst each other. If we're going to grow this state, we have to work together. When you look at the ideas in our universities, do we need African American scholarships? Hell yeah, because our kids need to go to school. We've got a governor that wants to spend $100 million in juvenile detention centers. We can't lock up everybody. Who's going to work? When Hyundai comes to our state, who's going to work? We got to create opportunities. We've got one at LSUA in my area. We have a large African-American scholarship, and we raise quite a bit of money because we want kids in school. We don't want kids locked up. With bills like this, that's going to go away. What about Asian scholarships? We're better than that. We have to learn to work together. We're not going to move this state unless we work together. All of this hateful speech and these bills, our state is bigger than that. As I close, members, when you look at us standing here, we want to work with you, but we can't afford bad legislation. I don't want my children and grandkids to say, hey, you sit there and just let stuff go. I know Rep. Genevieve, I've talked to her. You don't want your history to say, hey, I'm dividing our state. I'm attacking groups. That's not what you want. If we're going to move our state forward, we have to work together. We cannot afford to file these bad bills. I was hoping that the leadership would say, no, this bill is too divisive. We don't need it. It's going to cause so many problems. We're trying to deal with tax issues. We're trying to deal with insurance crisis. We're trying to keep kids in school. We're trying to keep kids survive. We're trying to do infrastructure. But it doesn't work when you have divisive bills. These are dangerous bills. I ask that you look at them closely. If we're going to move the state together, it has to be with all of us. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Rep. Walters for the floor. Rep. Walters.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, I rise on the shoulders of Reverend Avery C. Alexander, Diana E. Bejois, Sidney Bartholomew, Louis Charbonnet III, Nick Connor, Joseph A. Delpit, Alphonse Jackson, Johnny Jackson Jr., Thomas Jasper, and Richard Turnley Jr. These are the founders of the Louisiana Legislative Black Caucus. What is important to me today is that our voices are lifted up. The voices for people who suffer from disabilities, those who've served this country that we call heroes, our veterans, women who are known to make a way out of no way, and racial groups such as the Black Caucus. Those are the voices that encompass diversity, equity, and inclusion. DEI is not solely about race and gender. Being a person who is DEI, whether a state appointee, civil service employee, a professor, a university administrator, it doesn't mean that they are underqualified or the sole reason that they received the position is because that they were a minority. People who are DEI have served this state on merit and not mediocrity. When we celebrate and have events for Women's Month, HBCU Day, Veterans Day, Farmers and Growers Day, all here at this Capitol, we are celebrating DEI. We are celebrating the legacy of recent accomplishments of those groups. I have critical data that needs to be entered into the record today. The Civil Service Report from 2023-2024 shows Louisiana has more than 69,000 state employees. This specific analysis includes both classified and unclassified employees. By gender, there are over 40,000 women, 28,000 men. By race, 38,000 are white, 24,000 are black, 2,000 Asian. By generation, traditional workers, meaning people who were born before 1946, 440, baby boomers, those who are born from 1946 to 1964, over 12,000, almost 13,000. Generation X, meaning that you were born from 1965 to 1980, 26,000. Millennial and Gen Y, meaning you were born from 1981 to 1996, 22,000. Generation Z, meaning that you were born after 1996, 6,400. The average age of state employees is 46, and that's classified and non-classified. And questions I want us to ponder on regarding DEI policies and trainings. What race or gender-based policies are we hearing that are in state agencies and universities? What are they implementing? What hiring practices, trainings, events are we hearing that are actually happening? Are we overstepping our boundaries as a legislature by regulating what universities teach, what college students' frameworks for their research is? What colleges use DEI, and how do they implement it in their practices? Sport is a big deal to this state. Do recruiters have to submit reports on their recruiting criteria if students who fall in the category of DEI are recruited? Does this limit who is recruited? How many students are currently in a program where their syllabus or syllabi may be deemed DEI? How will this impact historically Black colleges and universities and what is taught there? How will this impact our research universities and their status in funding? Will students be allowed to finish their degree in their discipline if they have a paper that might fall along the lines of diversity, equity, and inclusion? Should we dismantle the Women's Caucus because the men of this legislature aren't allowed to join the caucus based on gender? I would like to highlight the contributions of people from around this state, people who would fall under the scope of DEI. The first Black trooper hired by Louisiana State Police was Abraham Bowie. He was hired in 1970. He was 32 years old. He had completed 10 years of service in the Marine Corps. The first female state trooper, Cindy Bell of Opelousas. She started her service in 1974. The first Indian governor in U.S. history who served the state of Louisiana, Bobby Jindal. First woman elected governor of Louisiana was the late Kathleen Babineau Blanco. The first Black governor of Louisiana was Pinckney Benton Stewart Pinchback, who served as acting governor in 1872. The first Asian American to serve as chief law enforcement officer of a major metropolitan area. He served as sheriff of Jefferson Parish for 7 terms, Harry Lee. And the list goes on and on and on. State agencies who provided fiscal note input. Louisiana Department of Agriculture and Forestry, they would be required to eliminate their minority and veteran program. And it would eliminate the Director of Minority and Veteran Affairs, that position. That is one employee out of 69,000 that we know of. Louisiana has a total of 8,000 minority-owned farms operating on over 800,000 acres. There are 3,400 women-owned farms, 3,100 Black farms, 849 Spanish farms, 526 Indian-owned farms. Elimination of 6 positions in the Louisiana Department of Health. Those positions are federally funded, and they are still federally funded to this day. And they fall under DEI. We don't know how this would impact research with LDH if these positions would fade away. Important research, such as breast cancer and other forms of cancer, HIV, sickle cell. Thank you.
Rep. LaFleur for the floor on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and to my colleagues who remain in your seats and listening attentively. We do appreciate the level of respect that you have shown each of us this afternoon. So I want to level set a little, do a little teaching. We don't need state laws to enforce Supreme Court cases. Let's be clear about that. Those cases are what they are and are binding on states without any need for us as a body to interpret those. Because we learned early on in our education that the Supreme Court is the supreme law of the land. And the Supreme Court case that was mentioned today didn't go as far as this bill. It did not speak of academic instruction, state agencies, and whatever else is in the bill. The Supreme Court case was about admissions. This bill is both unnecessary and a misinterpretation of the supreme law of the land. Members, I stand in opposition to House Bill 685. It's regressive, and it's all based on ideology. What this bill does, to be clear, produces fear. It is not about fairness at all. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, members, are not threats at all. What those terms mean to me and the people who sent me here to voice for them, they are the promise of equal access to opportunity. They are about making sure that the people of Louisiana, regardless of background, can work together, live together, play together, thrive together, and our institutions are in place so that all of us have access. Diversity, equity, and inclusion are not bad words. They're good representations of what it is we teach our children. They're good representations of what we learned in Sunday school. They are good representations of our heart. Thank you, members.
Rep. Boyd for the floor on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to start by saying several times it has been said that we were following federal law. Federal law also includes members of the LGBTQ community as a protective class. That bill has been run 22, 23, 24, and again 25, dying in committee. I wish we could follow federal law on everything. Members, I urge us to pause and consider what we're doing here today. The narrative that DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, is divisive and unnecessary is false. DEI reflects our shared commitment in fairness and opportunity for all. Historically, women who have gained leadership, education, and income benefit from DEI. Attacking DEI harms Attacking DEI harms these progress opportunities and send a harmful message about inclusion. This bill narrows opportunity and misrepresents inclusion. Instead, we should recognize diversity and equity to strengthen our economy and in our community. I urge you today, my colleagues, to vote based on principle of justice and fairness, not fear. Please, let's embrace what unites us, not separates us. Thank you.
Rep. Hughes for the floor on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Oftentimes when I'm asked by my constituents, when I'm asked by legislators from around this country, when I'm asked by just ordinary people, how do you enjoy serving in the Louisiana House of Representatives? My response is always the same. I absolutely love it. I often get asked questions, well, how can you love an institution where you serve in a super minority? I said, because I've come to know the hearts and minds of my colleagues. Members, I have intentionally, and I'm going to use the word intentional, I've been intentional about getting to know each and every one of you in this chamber. Gotten to know your hearts. And each of you are just good, genuinely decent people. I believe that in my heart. I've broken bread with you all. We've shed tears together. We've done a lot of laughter together. Some of us have traveled together. I have spent time at your homes with your spouses, with your children. I've been there for you. You've most certainly been there for me. You possess so much goodness, and I mean that. This bill is so unnecessarily divisive. So unnecessarily divisive, members. And I just feel that we are so much better than this. I've traveled to all 64 parishes in this state. And I think one of the greatest strengths of this great place that we call Louisiana, despite its challenges, despite its dark past, as I travel this world, I'm always excited to come back. I feel it's the greatest place on earth. And in my opinion, our greatest strength is our diversity. Diversity built this state. Our state is one big gumbo. A couple weeks ago, I was in Representative Carrier's district in Oberlin. His constituents could not be more different than mine. But God, they were so nice, so welcoming, so loving. Just good, decent people, like the citizens of District 100 and like the citizens in each and every one of our districts. And so, members, it's been a great journey for me in this House. But I have to admit, my heart is heavy today. Today is dark for me. Today is painful for me. I'm reminded of my grandfather who you've heard me talk about in the past, the late Lieutenant Colonel Reverend James Lawrence Wynn Jr., who graduated from Southern University in 1952, was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the Army, rose the ranks to become a lieutenant colonel during a time of great racial strife, Even though he was fighting to defend the flag, he could not stop at certain hospitals with his pregnant wife because of the color of his skin. My grandfather fought to defend this country, and he fought for equality so that I didn't have to fight so hard. But I feel like history is somehow repeating itself. And here we are, once again, having to fight such a divisive fight. Members, I hope we can get past this. But it is going to take some time because it is causing unnecessary division. But despite the darkness that looms today, I know this in my heart. God still reigns, and the sun will rise again. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Rep. Jordan for the floor on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank you in advance because I have not received any text to say that the live feed has been cut or the microphones have been killed. So I want to let you know we do appreciate that, and it doesn't go unrecognized. For those of you who don't get it, it must be your first term. So, and you know, I like Rep. Hughes, my heart is heavy, but you got to find some levity in some of these moments. You know, I have a friend of mine, just yesterday he was talking, and he was saying, you're one of the only people I know that can stay even keeled through most situations. And I try to do that. But I think the members, our members, have been able to express the frustration that we have with bills like this. And it's not just that it's divisive, it's that it's offensive. And let me tell you why it's offensive. Because we're always in the minority. We always play by the rules that someone else has developed. And when there's just a perception, not a real win, but when there's a perception of us winning by others, then there's a need to change the rules. And that is the frustration. How can you ever get ahead when the rules are always changed as an obstacle for you? That they're always done to your detriment. You know, this body coming out of Reconstruction, coming out of slavery, this body actually passed the first public education system in the country. That was done by PBS Pinchback, T.T.L. Lane, Oscar Dunn, and others here in this legislature. But only a few years later, they were all removed from office, and Jim Crow came in. You know, Rep. Hughes talked about the military. We had people that had to fight again, extreme obstacles to be accepted into the military. Went out and fought, but came home and couldn't get a VA loan, couldn't participate in the GI Bill. And so when this bill talks about institutional racism and systemic racism, those are some of the things that they're talking about, but yet we can't talk about that. You know, look, I'm gonna just be frank. To me, this is an anti-black bill, and let me give you some other examples of that. We talk about in the bill that we can't talk about, or you can talk about Japanese internment, but you're not going to talk about race-based reparations. I mean, do we understand that the Japanese actually receive reparations for the Japanese internment? I mean, you know, we got to look at some of these things. How about redlining in banking? Outside of the GI Bill, just black people trying to get ahead and banks not loaning to you based on your area code or your zip code or where they perceived that you lived. These are the things that we've always had to deal with. And so now to face a bill like this, it's very disheartening. You know, Louisiana was famous for the black codes and the one-drop rule. And I know we had a resolution today from Representative Baham honoring our Pope. And I want to honor him as well as the first African-American Pope there. I didn't create the one-drop rule, but if we're going to go there, we know he's got more than one drop in him. Right? And I was talking to one of my good friends here in the legislature, and they said, well, that's not how he identifies. I said, well, this legislature already has said it's not how you identify, it's how you're born. And so we know how he was born. And so I want to publicly congratulate the Pope as being the first African-American Pope in the history of the church. But again, I just want you to understand that we don't always come up here united in this type of semblance. But I want you to know this is not for show. This is not for some spectacle. This is to express to you the seriousness of which we take this bill and the effect that we think that it will have on our communities. And lastly, I'll just tell you, because it's on my heart. And I understand what the media says. I understand what the reports will say. But it's hard for me to envision, and I find it somewhat ironic that this bill comes up on the same day that President Tate has announced that he's moving on to Rutgers University. I find it really strange that a man that just signed a 6-year contract a year ago decided it was time to move on. But it's not hard to understand in a climate like this why he would want to do so. And that's part of the frustration. I think there's no doubt that he's been successful in all aspects of his presidency while he's been at LSU. And the flagship university has certainly succeeded under his tenure. But when you wake up every morning and you have to deal with issues like this, I can certainly see why New Jersey probably seems and looks a lot better. What I tell you is I just hope that President Tate isn't the last good person that we lose to another state because of the foolishness that we've encountered in Endeavor. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Rep. Taylor for the floor on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I had said I wasn't going to say anything, but I just can't let the opportunity pass because I'm not the oldest person in the building, but I think I might be the oldest one up here. And I must say that before I even knew what diversity, equity, and inclusion was supposed to mean, and before it even became in existence, I was a recipient of it because I could not have gone to school. I didn't have the finances, but Dillard University provided me with an opportunity, and I had the tests, and I took the National Teachers Exam, the Graduate Record Exam, the Law School Admissions Test, and I was given an opportunity by a program called the Council for Legal Education Opportunities, that if I passed that summer, I had a class from a professor from Southern Law School, LSU Law School, Tulane Law School, and Loyola Law School. if I passed that summer program, that I would be admitted free into any Louisiana law school. And I must say I went to Dillard free also because I didn't have the money. Matter of fact, I didn't have the money for the application to go to law school. And I said, I wrote the letters. LSU accepted me, Grambling and Dillard. Dillard gave me all the money, so I went to Dillard. But I was not intimidated by not having it. I thought, this is America. If I apply myself to my education, that I will be able to go to school. And I went to school. I didn't get my first call till my second year law school. Nobody gave me anything, and I wasn't quiet and easygoing, as you already know. So therefore, they gave it to me in spite of that. Some of the people I met since I've been here, at first I was disillusioned when I got here and saw how the votes went. We all represent people in our district that elected us to come here, various people, various ethnicities. We should be voting on behalf of the people that we represent. We can't satisfy everybody, but we represent everybody. We should not be rubber stamping everything that is set before us. I don't do it. I can't tell you how to act. But what I'm telling you is this: I made friends. Even before I got here, I met a friend from St. Charles Parish. She was the first female. I was the first female from my parish. She helped me, I helped her. We don't agree on everything, but we do communicate, and I think she tells me, she'll point out, I had a meeting with a group of people or whatever. I say, I'd like to go to the meeting. She gives me information, I give her information. That's the spirit of camaraderie that we should be attempting to do with each other. The speaker, he is very sensitive. When he heard my story, when I met with him for the first time, he was very compassionate with me. I don't always agree with him and nobody else here, but I'm just saying that at least he's compassionate, and I think he's sincere. You know, he has his opinion, but that's the way we should operate. I don't think we should blindly deny what's going on today. What's going on today is something that shouldn't go on. We've learned how to live together. There's somebody in here who's a fashionista. I just love her. She sits over there. She knows who I'm talking about. But we've learned to adjust and to accommodate each other. We should not blindly vote for this stuff. This stuff is divisive, and I think we've come too far together since we've been here to continue on in this vein that we're doing today, and I disagree with this today.
Rep. Taylor, I want you to know that Rep. Emerson also thinks I'm very sensitive. Rep. Amity for the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I appreciate the passion, and I too want to echo what one of my colleagues said about how it's nice that we can sit and have this chat, and we're listening. We're not yelling and doing ugly things. But I felt compelled to come and say just a couple of words here. There are things that I see in this bill, like on page 4, line 11, this is something that would be prohibited. Requiring or soliciting an applicant, employee, or student to provide a written or oral statement regarding DEI. That should be prohibited. That's compelled speech. That's not freedom of speech. That's not what this nation's founded on. And then the next one, number 4, extending any preferential treatment based on race, color, ethnicity, sex, national origin, gender identity, or sexual orientation in the making of decisions at public post-secondary education institutions on admission, state-supported financial aid, scholarships, or other services or benefits. This would be a good thing if you believe that scholarship should be based on merit or financial scholarship should be based on financial need. That's what I think it should be based on. But listening today, I'm hearing we're coming closer. We're coming closer. There's a lot more that we agree on than we disagree on. So hear me out. And if you disagree, come tell me later and we'll talk some more. Equity. Equity is a Marxist term. It's an attempt to have the government force equal outcomes. Instead, what we should unify around is equality. Equality is what this nation's about. It's about leveling the playing field so that people compete fairly. It's about equal opportunities, not guaranteed outcomes of success. Equal opportunities so that we can all try. It's about freedom. Diversity. I keep hearing diversity is what makes us strong. It's not. I keep thinking of the scripture about a three-stranded cord that can't be broken. But it depends on what you make that cord up of. The three-stranded cord can't be broken when all of the cords pull together. So what makes us strong is unity. Unity around truth. We should recognize people for their strengths, for their talents, for their gifts and their passions. And we should unify around the freedom for people to have an equal opportunity to pursue those dreams and goals. And what about our differences? What about our diversity? Well, here's a truth we need to come together around. There's only one race, and it's human. All are created in the image of God, in a big variety and abundance of beautiful shades of skin tones. There's only one race, human. I love you, my colleagues. Thank you.
Rep. Owen for the floor on the bill.
Members, I'm not sure what to say or how to say at this moment. I see us talking past each other. I hear us talking past each other. First thing I'm going to say right now is I am here to defend Emily Chenevert. I have known her whole life. We were born in the same town. Our grandparents were friends. There is nothing wicked or crooked or racist at all in Emily. She, like me, attends a multiracial church. I know this is about the bill, but I'm going to tell you all, because I can't stand her being impugned. Last year at our high school, she got a young man put in the Sports Hall of Fame who had spent 15 years in jail, a black guy. She stuck her neck out. That's just a thing, but I'm just telling you the character of this woman is not what it is being portrayed. But what I worry about for us as a society is we talk past each other, especially in these moments. Some of y'all were here 3 years ago when we started redoing social studies content standards for the state. And Ted James and Royce Duplessis and I went over one of the formulating meetings. And I wanted to get involved. And Royce and Ted both told me, Chuck, if you get involved, don't just tell about what good happened to black people. Tell the whole story. And I committed myself to that, and not because I'm standing around black people, but because I'm old enough to have seen change in this country, and I have seen us get better all the time. And my focal point in that, and since I've been giving speeches since then, is our warts and how we have gotten better from our flaws. That we as a country were formed with great purpose, but with flaws. The 3/5 compromise was not good. Not giving women the right to vote was not good. But we started with this basic framework of equal justice under law. And over time, we shed a lot of blood. A lot of blood. Our content standards that our kids have now, and I wish some of y'all would look. I try to tell people about them, what we got done. They go into things that have never been in our schools before. They talk about the massacres at Opelousas, at Colfax, about the riots here in Baton Rouge. They go drill down way into Jim Crow and into Reconstruction and into Chappie James, into the Tuskegee experiments and the Tuskegee Airmen and Emmett Till. We as a country have moved in the right direction over time. And we stand here together, and a lot of you know me, and you know where I stand on these issues of equal justice under law. I think that's what stands over our Supreme Court. And that's what I stand for, and that's what I know Emily stands for here. And so when I see this chasm of misunderstanding, I'm going, why do a group of people see something and another group see something else? And I don't know. It is because of the things that have happened in this country that have been awful. And they have been awful. I am the great-grandson of a Klansman. My father decided we were going another way in my house. And we have lived our lives differently. And so when I see this, I just grimace because I love you all and I love this state. Carolyn and I came back to this state because it's our home. And I want to leave you all with this. I don't know how we're going to see past each other today. My wife tells me I shouldn't tell people that I use artificial intelligence, but it really helps me. I dropped this bill into my artificial intelligence machine. I'm thinking, what am I missing? I love everybody here with the love of Christ and the love of Louisianian. And I said, is this bill inherently racist? And here's what the computer said back to me. I didn't ask a white guy, I didn't ask a black guy. It said, this bill does not contain anything overtly racist. Its language is race neutral, prohibiting DEI programs and content that classify or treat individuals differently based on race without promoting racial superiority, denigration, or exclusion. The bill's focus on concepts like critical race theory or systemic bias is ideological, not explicitly racial, and exemptions for historical education, anti-discrimination laws, and academic freedom further mitigate discriminatory intent. And it says a few more things. But what I'm saying is, when we all go home tonight, let us all seek God, that we all may understand each other more. It's been a hard few weeks for me trying to get through to folks, and I hope I've gotten through today. Because Louisiana has a bright future. We stand at the threshold of greatness if we choose to have it. And I don't know how this ends, but I had to say these things because we are a great people. Last thing, when Francis Thompson was a freshman here and I was down here as a page in 1978, I don't think there were 3 or 4 black people in this house. Well, our age, yes. And there weren't many women either. We have come a long way. Let's keep going a long way. Let us lock arms and let us seek God. Let us seek God for how to be better.
Representative Terry Landry, Jr. for the floor.
Good afternoon, everybody. Members, I'm the new kid on the block. And I was recently elected not to sit on the sideline and be quiet, but to speak for the people and for all people. And I think today what makes me qualified to speak for all people is I'm fresh off the campaign trail. I knocked on thousands of doors and talked to thousands of people, black, white, Hispanic, male, female, young, and not old but seasoned individuals. And not one time did DEI come up. Not one person that I talked to said, I believe DEI is a problem and we need to eradicate it or get rid of it. Our people are worried about the economy. How they're gonna make a living. How they're gonna pay their bills. How they're gonna take care of their children. What schools their children are gonna grow up in and the education that they receive in this state. Not about what divides us, not about what makes us different, but what can bring us together. And this bill does none of those things. So if you can look at yourself and say, does this bill make Louisiana better? Does this bill bring Louisiana together? Does this piece of legislation improve the lives of our citizens? I have not heard a yes yet. And with that, this bill is unnecessary. It divides us instead of bringing us together. We have more in common than we think. And we should always remember who elected us, the people. We are state representatives, and we represent our districts. And today, we should stand true to that title. Our constituents have not asked to pass this piece of legislation. They have not asked that we get rid of DEI. They have asked for a better life, a better Louisiana, and a better future. So I ask that you vote not for party, not for politics, but for the people and for the betterment of the state. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no other individuals for the floor. I asked if we could start making our way back to our desk. I'll give you a few minutes to get back. Representative Berry, you have a right to close.
Members, when I ran for office, I said a lot about how I was never afraid to have hard conversations. I knocked on almost 6,000 doors. One of my closest friends, who happens to be a lot darker than me, who I love dearly, was with me that day. Many days, actually. And we're friends because of our heart and our love for God. When I did this bill, I reached out to her, and I've had some conversations with her, and had some good conversations with her, and I wanted to know her heart on this. And I had like a little thing to prepare, but I really just want to speak from my heart. And as a mama, I care about the future of the state. And I'm not afraid to have tears because I'm a very passionate person about my God and how he sees us. Rep. Owen and I have known each other a long time, and he talked about how I go to a church my entire life growing up. I was in a home where my parents invited everyone in their home. Black, white, yellow, brown, Asian, Native American. The church started in my parents' living room. And I'm so thankful that that's how I grew up. I'm so thankful that despite maybe years prior, that it meant a lot to my father, that I had a home that was all about equality for all. That I saw people praying together hand in hand when I'd run down the stairs as a 4 or 5-year-old with care groups on a Sunday night, that what brought them together was God. What brought them together was a love of one another. And so early in some of the conversations, this bill is about legislation in our state. And it's about equality for all. I am so grateful for what I heard today. I know that must sound weird. I'm grateful to hear the heart of my colleagues. And sometimes you wonder, is it needed? And I'm here to say I think it is needed. Because these are the conversations, I think, that shape all of us. These are the conversations that we have. Why does this matter? Why does it matter that we make sure that little boys and girls sit in classrooms and aren't forced to be told that maybe, just maybe, the color of your skin, maybe it's the reason it could be a problem with you, either color? Is that okay? Does that make us better? Does that bring us together when we tell them how different we are and we tell them how opposite we need to be? Does that make us better? And my passion is it doesn't. When I talk to my little boy and he's like, Mom, we have these conversations. Who can I marry, whatever. He's like, does it matter what she looks like? No, son, it doesn't. I want her to love you and love God. That's my only desire. That's it. We talk about this. I read this book, and I brought it. I wasn't going to, but I've read this book called One Race, One Blood, based on Acts 17:26 out of the Bible. And it says we come from one race, one blood. Our blood is the same. So people may think I'm crazy. They may think, why in the world would you do this? Why do you talk about these things? Because it matters to the heart of God. And I know I'm not at church, but after hearing the hearts of everyone in this room today, this impacts all of us. It impacts the future. It impacts how we have hard conversations. We lock arms as black, white, yellow, brown, poor, rich, all the different walks of life. And we have to talk about these things. And why does it matter? Why am I willing when the governor's office and cares about this bill and I believe he wants what's best for the state? Why am I willing? Because let me tell you why. We have to move forward and realize that we are of one blood. We are of one nation. We are more similar than we are different. And I understand we may have a different perspective, but mine is a biblical perspective. And I will continue to have hard conversations, and I will continue to embrace, and I will continue to talk about whatever we need to talk about. I want to hear the heartbeat of colleagues. I want to hear the heartbeat of Louisianians across the state. But my desire is that we come together and we do not divide. My desire is that we do not say we're going to discriminate against anybody. That you can't get a job because of skin color, whether you're white or black or yellow or brown. That it is not about that in this state. That we want equality for all. So we may not all be on the same page of how we get there, but I'm here. I just need you to know my heart. I need you to know how I was raised. I need you to know what this matters to me, that I believe in Acts 17:26. I believe that we are more similar than we are different. And I'm willing to do this and to have these conversations in our state. So thank all of you for sharing. Because I think this is what brings us together. I think we talk about it and say, nope, we're not discriminating against anybody. Ever. Never in this state. No matter what agency, no matter what department, we're not doing it. And we're going to protect each other. That's what this bill is about. This is what this bill is about. This is not about taking away the rights of anybody with disabilities. It has nothing to do with it. This is not about taking away anybody's rights. This is protecting the rights of our people. So I just want you to know I stand with all of you. I appreciate your comments. I appreciate sharing your heart and what concerns you. But please know, this legislation is protecting all. This legislation, it says we are not going to focus on one group. We're going to say it does not matter what you look like. It does not matter where you come from. That we in Louisiana, we are more similar than we are different. Because I tell people that about this. People ask me all the time, what do you like about here? What's one thing that surprises you? And I say, you know what? Even we have a difference of policy. I love every one of my colleagues. I have said it over and over. I've said it in radio. I've said it all the time because it's the truth. No matter where we agree or disagree, is that we are human and we're going to have a different perspective, but I love each and every one of them because they matter to their districts. They worked hard to be where they were. That's my heart. So this is not divisive. This is protecting every Louisianian. This is about equality for all. This is about making sure we are not going to discriminate against anybody based on race, religion, creed, or national origin. This is about every Louisianian. And I would just ask for your favorable passage.
Rep. Willard, why do you rise?
Just stand. I actually was hoping she would take one question on close.
Rep. Schinnebeer.
All right, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to request a lockout.
Will 20 members join Rep. Willard in a lockout? Rep. Marcel? Rep. Green?